Tes, selamat sore. Ada yang hadir nih? Ada yang absen tapi viewernya nol ya, kelihatannya nggak nonton ini ya. Tes. Kalau dia nonton pasti replay ini. Ya, kalau suara saya ada, yang absen barusan tolong di replay di YouTube chat ya. Ya, udah terlihat ya, emang tidak hadir ya, itu konsekuensinya masing-masing ya. Ya, saya hanya mau menjelaskan review bahwa kuliah hari ini kita akan melihat beberapa mana itu dia. Oke, bahwa kalian tidak mengerjakan tugas 4, tugas 5 ya, ini udah tinggal 10 hari lagi. Ini saya terus terang pesimis nih ya. Oke, tapi ya itu konsekuensi kalian ya. Jadi saya tidak akan membahas lagi karena di sini juga udah ada buktinya kalian tidak mengerjakan ya. Saya tidak ada masalah di sini. Ya, saya akan buka UASnya. Oh, sorry. UASnya bukan yang ini. Ntar. UAS kita lihat. Nah, UASnya macet. Ya, berarti kita manual saja ya UASnya. Kita lihat SKS. Ini kayaknya ada nih. Ya, saya copy paste aja deh. Nah, copy paste. Ya, create reuse. Udah bisa reuse ya. Oke, deh nggak apa-apa. Udah bisa reuse. Oh, udah bisa. Oke. Reuse lagi. Semoga jalan nih. Oke, jalan. Ini kelas berapa nih? TIS 17 ya. TIS 17. Ini UAS ya, dah tanggal tanggal berapa tuh? Oh, tanggal 10. Sorry. Saya tanggal 10. Berarti ini ganggu ini. Ya, saya pinggirkan dulu. Oke, tanggal 10 di sini ya, tanggal 27 ya. Itu hari Senin. Oke. Paling lambat hari Senin tanggal 27. Maka tes 17. Tidak perlu masuk di minggu UAS. Oke. Sign dulu. Nah, ya. Kita lihat UASnya itu apa isinya. Nah, jadi sebenarnya UASnya sangat mudah sekali, yaitu hanya mengisi pertanyaan-pertanyaan yang ada di sini ya. Ada sekitar 25 kalau nggak salah. Nah, ini pertanyaannya ada di PPT saya semuanya. PPT saya itu ada di mana? Kita lihat. Oke. Yang digunakan untuk UASnya ada di ini, suplemental 1 ini ya. Kita ambil contoh, misalnya sebutkan definisi dari antena berarti kan berarti kan paling atas ini harus ini. Nah, definisi. Nah, ini ada antena, tinggal di copy paste saja ya. Jadi sangat mudah sekali UASnya. Oke. Ada masalah untuk ini, tinggal yang merah-merah ini kalian isi dulu ya. Jadi kalau namanya misalnya si ABC ya ditulis ABC, npm-nya 000 ya 000, fontnya harus merah ya. Di sini fontnya sudah merah. Ini karena formatnya di OCX sehingga kalian tinggal ngedit intinya. Oke. Ini sudah ada contohnya. SKS-nya sudah ada, ini sudah saya tulis semuanya. Terus enter. Oke. Ya. Oke, ini untuk kuasnya nggak ada masalah. Oke, ini ini nggak ada ini ya. Oke, ini patut diperhatikan bahwa kita sekarang pertemuan terakhir dan pertemuan minggu depan itu sudah minggu tenang ya, dan minggu depan lagi sudah UAS ya, sehingga kita sudah tidak akan kuliah online lagi. Nah, untuk penutupan syakat itu kira-kira 2 minggu setelah minggu UAS, jadi mungkin sekitar minggu ke-2 Agustus ya, mungkin belum tentu, seginilah kira-kira ya. Nah, setelah minggu ke-2 Agustus oke. Minggu ke-2 Agustus. Ya, oke. Betul. Terus untuk remedinya itu hanya bisa kalian lakukan tuh sebelum penutupan syakat ya. Jadi minggu ini dan ini ya, itu hanya bisa kalian lakukan di sini untuk remedi. Dan saya tidak menerima remedi setelah penutupan syakat ya. Jadi saya nggak peduli alasannya apa, pokoknya adalah syakatnya itu sudah di penutupan syakat, jadi sudah tidak ya, intinya adalah saya tidak menerima menerima remedi setelah syakat ditutup, dah gitu aja ya. Oke, kita lihat. Sorry ya. Oke, sampai di sini dulu. Ada pertanyaan enggak ya? Gimana nih? Kok diam-diam aja? Berarti memang nggak ada yang nonton ya? Udah, kalau nggak ada yang nonton ya kita style film saja ya. Oke. Nah, ini aja kita style ya. Oh, YouTube.
How many of us really understand what goes on when you text your friend across the ocean and they get the ping almost instantaneously? Allow me to entertain you with a little thought experiment. When you press send on your favorite messaging app, where's your message really going? Into the air, you'd say, like radio waves. But let's back up a bit. When you press send on a messaging app such as WhatsApp, you're essentially sending instructions to your mobile processor via tiny copper wires on a printed circuit board inside your smartphone. Now, these instructions are essentially electrical impulses, right? And electrical impulses are just electrons flowing along the potential difference. How exactly does your message jump into thin air from being electron flows and copper wires? At one stage, you had a circuit board that you could touch and feel and even smell. And then suddenly you have radio waves in the invisible part of the spectrum, flying away into thin air at incredible speeds. What's in between? Well, an odd-looking device. It's an antenna, which roughly translates to a pole in Latin. An antenna is a metal-tongued voodoo device that swallows electrical impulses and spits out radio waves. It's as silent as the dead, but its screams can be heard for miles. Specifically, a Wi-Fi antenna like the one here in the picture screams at 2.4 gigahertz, that's more than 2 billion beats per second, and spits out waves of roughly 12.5 centimeters in length. Unlike visible light, these waves can pass through certain materials and even bend around corners. But how does an antenna produce radio waves? Before we answer this question, let's take a small detour. Do you remember the reason buzz in pop science about gravitational waves? They're basically fluctuations in gravitational field propagating as radiant energy. Einstein's general relativity predicted their existence many years ago, and we've only recently discovered them. Just like gravitational waves, electromagnetic waves are fluctuations in an electromagnetic field, propagating as radiant energy. And, not much unlike the story of gravitational waves, the existence of invisible electromagnetic waves was predicted by Maxwell's equation, well before their discovery by Heinrich Hertz. So, to produce radio waves, you need to create fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. And to create those fluctuations, you need electrons moving around in a conductor. The act of radio wave synthesis is a carefully choreographed, rhythmic dance of electrons and tiny copper wires. Like perturbations in still water that radiate outward from the point of disturbance, the electron flows in an antenna cause perturbations in the electromagnetic field, which radiates out into space as electromagnetic waves. When you press send on your favorite messaging app, your mobile operating system sets off a chain of events that ultimately encodes the message as a carefully choreographed electron dance. This dance results in rhythmic ebbs and flows in the electromagnetic field in the surrounding space, which radiates outwards towards a cell tower. The receiving antenna on the cell tower feels these ebbs and flows on its conducting surface, inducing an electron dance very similar to the one from the transmitter. This electron dance is again a set of electric impulses in tiny copper wires, which are decoded by the hardware at the cell tower. The decoded information is then carried on high-throughput cables for thousands of miles across countries, continents, and even oceans, through transatlantic communication cables or some other submarine communication cables, to a cell tower near your friend across the ocean. From the tower to your friend's phone is another wireless jump, and finally, your friend hears the familiar ping. How does the phone know where the cell tower is? It doesn't, and it doesn't need to. Your phone broadcasts your message in all directions for anyone to listen to. But don't worry, your message will be encrypted, and only the cell tower can decode your message. How does the cell tower know that the message is from me, I hear you ask? With every message you transmit, you also include a code that uniquely identifies your device. That is how the cell tower knows that it's you. But how does the cell tower differentiate between messages from different phones? The phones all agree on a protocol to send messages to the tower at either different times, different frequencies, different locations, or using different codes. The best analogy I have for this is that of a classroom. Imagine it contains 100 students and just one teacher. Now if all the students start speaking at once, the teacher cannot understand any of them, so they agree on a protocol. If a student wants to speak, they raise their hand and wait for the teacher to point to them. If multiple students raise their hand at once, the teacher picks them out one by one so that only one student is speaking at any given time. In this case, the cell tower is the teacher and the devices are the students. While students can speak at different times to avoid interference, devices can speak at different times, different frequencies, or different codes to avoid interference. So you're telling me that the majority of the communication is not really wireless? Yes, unless you're using a satellite phone, wireless communication is only used for 2 steps along the road. Sender to tower 1 and tower 2 to receiver. The communication between the cell towers happens through ultra-high-speed communication cables underground. But aren't cables so out of fashion for the 21st century? Why not use wireless all the way? Well, the cables we're talking about here, like the transatlantic communication cables, are definitely very high-tech. They can carry terabytes of data every second and do not face the problem of interference nearly as much as their wireless counterpart. Also, you'll need a lot of satellites to cater to billions of users and their data needs if you want to go wireless all the way, and launching satellites is a very expensive process. That's it for this episode of Tell Me Why. Go ahead and check out our other interesting videos, and feel free to subscribe if you haven't done so yet. Till then, stay happy, stay curious.
Wi-Fi operation uses the carrier sense multiple access with collision avoidance access method. When computer 1 wants to send a data frame to computer 4, it first listens or senses the media to be sure it's free. If the media is busy, the station must wait. If the media is free, computer 1 transmits the frame to computer 4. The access point receives the message and in a similar manner to a hub repeats it. Computer 4 receives the frame while computers 2 and 3 discard it. Computer 4 then sends an acknowledgement frame back to computer 1 to verify the frame was received successfully. An advanced operational Wi-Fi mode uses handshaking. This mode is usually only supported by high-end Wi-Fi NICs and is used when stations are located far apart, causing the hidden node problem. In this mode, computer 1 again must first listen to verify if the media is not in use. If the media is free, computer 1 must, in a sense, ask permission to transmit by sending a request to send message to the access point. The access point replies with a clear to send message if the media remains free. The CTS message is heard by all other stations, notifying them that another station is about to transmit and that they must wait before attempting to transmit. The amount of time to wait is part of the CTS message. Computer 1 now sends the data frame to computer 4. Computer 4 receives the frame and then sends an acknowledgement frame back to computer 1.
Let's suppose that you're writing a really important email to a colleague.
Have you heard of IEEE 802.3? It has a long history and has to do with our topic today, Ethernet. Before we get started on today's video, if you love our videos, be sure to click the like button below. Then make sure to click subscribe and the little bell to receive notifications of new RealPars videos. This way, you never miss another one. Ethernet is a communication standard that was developed in the early 80s to network computers and other devices in a local environment, such as a home or a building. This local environment is defined as a LAN, or local area network, and it connects multiple devices so that they can create, store, and share information with others in the location. Ethernet is a wired system that started with using coaxial cable and has successfully progressed to now using twisted pair copper wiring and fiber optic wiring. Let's break for a trivia question. Who invented twisted pair wiring? Alexander Graham Bell invented twisted pair wiring in 1881. In 1983, Ethernet was standardized into the standard IEEE 802.3 by the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, or IEEE. This standard defined the physical layer and the MAC, or Media Access Control portion, of the data link layer of wired Ethernet. These two layers are defined as the first two layers in the OSI, or open systems interconnection model. The physical layer consists of the following components: cabling and devices. First, let's take a look at Ethernet cabling. As stated previously, Ethernet cables come as coaxial cable, which is not very common except in older installations, twisted pair, and fiber optic. The most common cable is twisted pair cables, with the latest being Category 6 with speeds up to 1 gigabit per second, and Cat 6A and Cat 7 with speeds up to 10 gigabits per second. Category 5 and 5E cables are both still used in many existing applications, but handle the lower speeds between 10 megabits per second to 100 megabits per second, but are more susceptible to noise. The Ethernet twisted pair utilizes RJ45 8-pin connectors at either end of the cable that is pinned for transmitting and receiving data in either half or full duplex mode. Half duplex transmits data in one direction at a time, while full duplex allows data to be transmitted in both directions at the same time. Full duplex in Ethernet can be achieved by using two pairs of wires to allow data to travel both directions simultaneously. Fiber optic cable uses glass or plastic optical fiber as a conduit for light pulses to transmit data. It has allowed Ethernet to travel farther distances at higher speeds. Fiber optic cables use several different types of connectors that vary depending on your application needs. Some of the different types are SFP, small form pluggable or small factor pluggable, and SC, subscriber connector, also known as square connector or standard connector. In order to use fiber optic in an Ethernet network that utilizes twisted pair Ethernet cabling, you need to use an Ethernet to fiber converter that will allow your network to take advantage of the higher speeds of fiber optic and lengthen the distance that the Ethernet network can reach. How about the Ethernet devices? Ethernet devices are consisting of computers, printers, or any device which either have an internal NIC or network interface card or an external one that is USB or PCI based. Switches and routers that act as the director of the network and connect multiple computers or even networks together to enable communication between all the different devices. Gateways and bridges are used to connect multiple Ethernet networks together and allow communication across them. Gateways connect two dissimilar networks together, while a bridge connects two similar networks together so that you can only see one network. Now that we have discussed the basic physical components of Ethernet, let's move into the second layer of the OSI model, the data link layer. The data link layer can be split into two sections: the logical link control, or LLC, and the media access control, or MAC. The logical link control establishes paths for data on the Ethernet to transmit between devices. The media access control uses hardware addresses that are assigned to network interface cards, or NIC, to identify a specific computer or device to show the source and destination of data transmissions. Ethernet transmits data packets in this data link layer by using an algorithm called CSMA-CD, or Carrier Sense Multiple Access with Collision Detection. CSMA-CD is used as a standard for Ethernet to reduce data collisions and increase successful data transmission. The algorithm first checks to see if there is traffic on the network. If it does not find any, it will send out the first bit of information to see if a collision will occur. If this first bit is successful, then it will send out the other bits while still testing for collisions. If a collision occurs, the algorithm calculates a waiting time and then starts the process all over again until the full transmission is complete. When you use the faster Ethernets and full duplex modes and incorporate switches, then you are utilizing a star topology between the switch ports and the devices. This allows for more direct transmission paths and fewer collisions, as compared to a bus topology where all devices share the same paths. Ethernet capabilities are quickly changing with new technologies emerging every day. And while we're currently on the brink of successfully moving into speeds higher than the current 1 gigabits per second, with 10 gigabits per second emerging over the last few years, these new Ethernet technologies will be costly. Also, your possibilities for the information world can seem endless when you connect this Ethernet local area network to the Internet to create a very large WAN, or wide area network. But that's a story for another day. All in all, Ethernet is popular because it strikes a good balance between speed, cost, and ease of installation. These benefits, combined with wide acceptance in the computer marketplace and the ability to support virtually all popular network protocols. Want to learn PLC programming in an easy-to-understand format and take your career to the next level? Head on over to realpars.com.
Ya, itu penjelasan tentang bagaimana wireless bekerja ya dalam bentuk video. Oke, ini nanti ada yang ngedir lagi tapi hilang lagi seperti biasa. Ya, Rudy channel. Ainul Yakin, David Faisal, Imam Malik. Nah, udah ya, yang lainnya nggak hadir ya. Oke, ada pertanyaan ya nih? Ya, ada pertanyaan ya. Ya udah, kalau itu kuliahnya saya selesaikan dulu. Seperti masih banyak bekerja ya. Ya udah, selamat bekerja.